What's going on? This is Introvert Boricua with a quick video. You can see on screen what this is gonna be about. Because it seems that one of my favorite, basically my favorite woman in the world, is catching a lot of flack for something that is seen for the most part like a conspiracy theory, but not from what is usually expected. I have heard the same thing from other factions. And first, I'm gonna say that Janet Jackson is like my favorite woman in the world. Nobody's a bigger fan of Janet Jackson than me. I I have been listening to her, following her for since I was a kid, since I was a since I was just a boy, and when she started having her own identity and started having her own success all the way back to 1986. I already knew who she was. Um, being a kid, I couldn't understand what she was saying at the time because it was in English, and because of where I grew up, I didn't I didn't understand what she was saying, but I was definitely listening to the beats, and they made they made an impression. They made an impression. And the thing is that this what is being alleged, not alleged, because she did say this about the current presidential nominee, about her race, and how whether she's black or not. Um, she was saying that she isn't black. Now, she's partially correct in saying that she's not black all the way, that people tend to assume that she's all the way Indian. And yes, I know that she has represented that part of her heritage, but that's only halfway correct. Um, the whole thing about Kamala Harris being Indian, but she's never been 100% only that. Um, she does understand that because of her father being Jamaican, there is a part of her that does trace back to African heritage. This is something that I have already talked about before. Um, but what what people were kind of like going at her for was uh, she misheard, or she assumed that her dad was white. Um, and that was the part that was really misinformed on her. But it kind of surprises me because I have followed her for such a long time, and it's not like her to just blurt out something without knowing for certain, without being informed about it. Her just saying, "Oh well, her dad is white," and that's what she was being told. Okay, let me go over some of the lines here to get a little context. A person claiming to be Janet Jackson's manager issued an unauthorized apology, according to the singer's rep. The statement from Mo El Masri purported to address the singer's interview with The Guardian, published on September the 21st, in which Janet, 58, questioned whether Vice President Kamala Harris is black. A red for Janet told People on Sunday that El Masri is not Janet's manager. I don't know who will that be. Nor is he affiliated with her camp. The rep says Randy Jackson is is Janet's manager. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that for a long time. Her manager was the same manager that managed Tina Turner. I forget his name now, but they used to have the same manager, Tina Turner and her. Okay, so now Randy Jackson is her manager. All right. The statement issued earlier on Sunday from El Masri, whom the singer's rep says does not represent Janet in any capacity, claimed that the singer was sorry for comments about Harris's based on misinformation. On Saturday, Janet falsely claimed to The Guardian that Harris 59 isn't black, repeating a right-wing conspiracy theory. It's not just a right-wing conspiracy theory. I have I have heard it from other factions and that insist that she isn't black, and that is partly true. If you are talking about being black as in African American, that would be correct because that's not what she is. But due to her from her father, there is a certain African heritage that she does have. Okay. During the interview with the UK outlet, it was mentioned that Harris could become the first black woman to be elected president. In response, said, "Well, you know what they supposedly said." Okay, who is she quoting? That she's not black. That's what I heard. That she's Indian. The singer added when the reporter responded that Harris is both. Janet falsely claimed that her father is white. Well, that is halfway correct. That is halfway correct. Her father is white. That's what I was told. I mean, I haven't watched the news in a few days. I was told that they discovered her father was white. She added. She must be confusing Harris's old man with Bob Marley or something. Uh, Janet added that she was unsure if America is ready for a woman of color to be president, saying, "I don't know." She said, I don't want to answer that because I really truthfully don't know. I think either way it goes, it's going to be mayhem." I think there might be mayhem, Janet responded when asked if she didn't think there would be a peaceful transition of power. Okay. Harris's mother, Dr. Shyamala Gopalan, was raised in India. Her father, Donald J. Harris, immigrated from Jamaica to study economics at the University of California in Berkeley, which is where he made Gopalan. Presidential candidate Donald Trump previously made false claims about Harris's race at the National Association of Black Journalists. Again, he's repeating something that he may have read on social media because I have heard the same thing. That claim, I've heard the same thing, and this is something that I have already talked about it before. I did a live stream about this, so I'm not gonna be going on too long about this because it's not about that so much. This, um, and that whole claim about her not being black. If again, if we're talking about being African American, she really isn't that. She's not. She's not that. But she does have African heritage. There is a difference. Now, this is basically what Donald Trump said. I have already talked about it. We don't have to go over that. That him not knowing that she was black, thinking that she was always Indian, and then all of a sudden she turned black. That's where he's wrong. That's where he's wrong because I don't think that her claiming that part of her heritage is a new thing. And I'm gonna be showing playing a video that it kind of says so other ways. Yes, she may represent her whole Indian half, which is her right. But if she were to represent the African part of her, which is like a quarter of who she is, then that will be fine too. That should be fine too. Remember the one drop rule? Is still very much a thing. Okay. Mhm. Yeah, all of this is continuing with what Tom uh, what he was saying about that. The thing is that again, it's very surprising. It's very surprising that Janet Jackson will go on and speculate on somebody's race. That has never been like her. And they were talking about the article in the Guardian of the UK. So I looked up. Let's see if I can open it up. All right. Now this is the article. This is the article in the Guardian. This is actually a pretty long interview because they go through just about everything about her in her life, all the way from back in the day when she was a kid and performing with her family. Later on, different stages of her life as she was growing up. This is they're showing here a picture when she will be partying with her brother, with the late MJ. So they were talking about many things, many parts of her life. This is a fairly long interview, and you can look it up. It's in the Guardian website, which is a UK site. Talk about her trajectory, talking about her career. She's talking about race, and this is her kid. This is her kid. This is what he looks like. And she wants to talk about race. She wants to speculate about what somebody is racially or not. Will she want somebody to speculate about the race of her kid? I don't think she will want that. I will think that she will want her kid to be left alone. They keep talking about the relationship with her dad, and it's around here when they talk about the presidential election, trying to see where does it start, because until here, until around here, they're talking about her career. The Resignation album, for us, it was about making a difference in a kid's life, teenager's life, and from them taking this path with drugs. Yeah, yeah, she's talking about the Rhythm Nation album, which is kind of like um the social consciousness work that she was doing at the time. That was back in 1989. Yeah, you can check out that album and see that maybe many of the things that she's gonna be talking about in that album back in 1989 could apply to today because it's about social issues. One of her best, one of her classics. And this is kind of like one of the line. You know what they supposedly say? Kamala Harris is not black. That's what I heard. That's the thing. That's the thing. One can hear many things. One can hear many things, and it's like, maybe you should have looked it up yourself and do a little reading because which is what usually will happen with her. She wouldn't. This isn't like her. I keep saying that this is this isn't like her because uh it's very uncharacteristic. On the record, she sang about joining voices in protest to social injustice and pushing towards a world rid of color lines. I wonder where she stands on the forthcoming election. This is the interview saying, after all, I say, America could be on the verge of voting in its first black female president, Kamala Harris. And that's when she replies. This is where the whole backlash it comes from this line where she say, "Well, you know that they supposedly say she's not black. That's what I heard. That she's Indian. Now, she's halfway correct. She's halfway correct. She looks expectant at me expectantly, perhaps assuming that I have an Indian heritage. And well, she's both. I offer. Her father is white. That's what I was told. I mean, I haven't watched the news in a few days. I was told that they discovered her father was white. Whoops. Because that's not true. That may be halfway true. Let's see if I can. Now this is her dad. This is the young Donald Harris with baby Kamala. That's not a white man. That's not a white man. That could be a half. I'm not gonna call it a half breed. We're not talking about animals. But I understand that he does have a white parent, and that's why he's not like really dark skinned, but he's not a white man either. So you could say that he's still like a brown halfway Afro descendant, and she gets a little bit of that. So and because of the one drop rule, she can claim that, and she has more than one drop. She has more than one drop. So that whole thing about her not having Afro descendant heritage, that's garbage. She does have it. Maybe um she's not African American, that I will agree. See what I'm saying? This is who Janet Jackson assumed that was white, even though he does look like he might be about the same skin tone as Janet. So that's basically where it comes from. Now, um, there may be, like I mentioned before, yes, there are people that are saying like she reps the Indian heritage, and you can look up, yes, you can look up videos in which she's cooking Indian food. She grew up with an Indian mother. Of course, she's gonna be doing some of that too. But also, uh, for those that do believe that she just turned black, quote unquote, I'm gonna be playing this video. This is from a panel that she participated back in 2006. This was 18 years ago. Now listen well how she words things. This is when she was district attorney in San Francisco.
Back to the question I posed earlier, I'm wondering whether or not with these kinds of numbers, it's a challenge to reform the criminal justice system, keep our people out of it, a challenge. That's why it's one of the top 10 issues. That's why it's in this covenant document. But these numbers don't inspire hope necessarily that there are going to be enough of us around in the coming months and years, certainly years, to implement this covenant the way these numbers are going.
The covenant, first of all, Travis, I want to thank you for what you've done bringing us together and convening us. We've had a lot of time waiting to come out to talk with each other and bond, and it's an incredible group. The criminal justice system is not working for the African American community. I can tell you as the chief law enforcement officer for a major city in this country that it is not working. We see that in the statistics that you've outlined. 2 million people are in the prison system in this country. Over 40% are African American, in spite of the fact that we only constitute 13% of the general population. It's not working. It's not working when we recognize that African American men, the leading cause of their death is homicide. We are overly represented both as victims and as defendants and as witnesses. Our communities suffer because our babies hear the gunfire every night. So the 7-year-old has post-traumatic stress disorder and cannot go to school the next day and learn. The criminal justice system is not working for us. What I think we have failed to do as a community, however, is own this issue of law enforcement. We talk about these statistics in the context always of it is unfair, it's morally incorrect. Maybe we have learned that from the church. It is morally incorrect, but nobody cares about that. You can look at Katrina. Nobody cares about the fact that we've got a bunch of young Black and brown men in prison. That argument is not working. What I suggest we do as African Americans is own this issue in law enforcement and then define it in the way that works for us, because it is a myth to say that African Americans don't want law enforcement. We do. We want our grandmothers to be able to walk to church and be safe. We want our babies to be able to walk to the park and be safe. What we don't want is racial profiling. What we don't want is excessive force. Right. What we don't want is to have our civil liberties and civil rights be stripped, but we do want law enforcement. So let's define it in the way that works for us by saying, I want community policing. I want a police department that works in my neighborhood and in my community that reflects the mores and the culture and respects my grandmother, again, when they walk in to talk to her. I want a system of accountability in the criminal justice system that says law enforcement needs to own crime prevention as much as it talks about long sentences. Because nationally, only 18% of serious crime results in an arrest. So if I, as law enforcement, with my responsibility to keep you safe, only talk about keeping you safe by sending people to prison for a long time, I'm necessarily going to fall short because the vast majority of that crime's not even hitting my system. So if I'm going to keep my promise to you to keep you safe, I better talk with you about what I'm doing in terms of crime prevention, which means recognizing that people coming out of the state prisons, 60% will recidivate if we don't get them in reentry programs, if we don't get them in job training, job readiness, get them in programs that deal with their substance abuse, get them in meaningful housing and employment so they don't recidivate. We could talk about it in terms of, is it the right thing to do? Of course it is. But I'm done talking about it like that. I'll just talk about it on this basis. If that person commits another crime, I have to spend $10,000 to try that felony. They sit in my county jail for $35,000 a year. I'm running a reentry program out of my office in San Francisco DA's office that brings folks back into the community at an expense of $8,000 a year, guarantees them employment, guarantees them meaningful reunification with their family. And in that way, fulfills my responsibility to keep my community safe. So let's redefine this issue in the context of public safety and just simply talk about doing crime prevention, investing in people coming out of prisons is the smart thing to do for law enforcement. Forget that it's just the right thing to do. It's the smart thing to do.
Thank you, Carmen. Madam DA. It would seem to me that the absolute
Okay. So I wanted to present that video to put it in perspective when it comes to what her identity is. Notice that in the video, you can rewind it and listen to it again, but notice that when she was talking about African Americans, she was talking about us, we, ours, our children, our grandmothers. She was including herself in as African American. Remember that she may not be it. She may not be it, but she knows that she's not a white woman. And she was raised in Oakland, and the way that she may have grown, it wasn't complete. She wasn't completely isolated. She wasn't necessarily living in the Indian bubble of her of her home with her mother. She had to go out and interact with other kids, and she has talked about busing, the whole busing thing to school, which is something that she has talked about, which did affect her, and both of her parents were um, actually activists for um, civil rights activists, because she was born back in the 60s, and that was the decade of the civil rights movement, even though they were immigrants, but they participated in that. They were they were going out there and participating in protests for civil rights. So that's something that kind of like those shaped her character somewhat. So her saying, but notice she was saying in the video, if you check the video, she was referring, she was using the words we, us, and ours. She wasn't saying about African Americans as them or they. And this was 18 years ago. So it's not something that she started doing recently. And I know, okay, yeah. Graduated from an HBCU. I know. Yeah. Being graduated from a HBCU, that doesn't make anyone a race of one race, because of white people go to HBCUs too. So that doesn't mean anything. I get it. But I just wanted to do this short video, and I wanted to present uh, this whole thing. Yeah, Janet kind of messed up. I'm disappointed. My favorite woman in the world. She usually knows better than to do that, than to make an assumption. She assumed wrong about her Kamala's old man. But yeah. This is basically what I got. Comment down below. Uh, yeah, you disagree with something, that's fine. Keep it respectful though. And that's all I got. Until next time, this is Introvert Boricua. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.